Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this evening I will not be talking to you about Dragonflight Beta. I mean, let's be honest, beta's on most everyone's mind, but I would assume, we had a 2-week announcement, less than 2 weeks, about a week and a half from now, Dragonflight pre-patch will be upon us, which means we have new talent trees, some odd interactions with legendaries and new talents, and a couple of things to discuss for Warlock, all 3 specs, heading into, well, pre-patch. Now, I will be making short, summary guides for Destro, Demo, and Aff going into pre-patch. This is not that video. This was like an initial oversight of, hey, this talent is working with this talent. There's a pretty disgusting interaction with, for example, Grim Inquisitors are legendary for Demo is a talent, but it's also still a legendary. So you literally double dip on that. Wilfred's, twice the CDR. There's a lot of really cool interactions that are coming in pre-patch, which, unless they get changed or patched, and I don't think it's going to happen because it's marked as release at this point, are going to spice things up for Warlock heading into that month before Dragonflight actually launches. Now, I do want to mention 2 things before we get too far in the video. Number 1, thank you for all the support on the second channel, the Kalamazi Clips channel. It's actually been doing really well, and I want to thank you guys for all the support. I really appreciate it. The Destro, Demo, Aff, Dragonflight Beta talent build videos, the short, 2.5, 3-minute ones, they are all indeed up in that channel. I will say those builds are changing week to week based on tuning and things, but if you guys looking for a quick summary of talents or things you might want to mess around with on beta, those videos are indeed all up in a much shorter format than this channel. I will not be uploading any kind of pre-patch videos on that channel for short talent summaries. I would assume things are changing a lot with legendary interactions and talents and things you'll see in this video. So that should all be on this channel. Number 2, the Warlock Dragonflight beta spreadsheet is now up. I guess on Patreon if you guys are interested in it, for those who've been asking. Once again, the tier 3 Felguard rank or higher does indeed get early access to that. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. And once raid testing concludes in a couple weeks, a week and a half or so, give or take, that should indeed be going public as well here. So with that being said, let's jump into the video, starting off with, let's talk initially about each specs, interactions with talents and legendaries and cool things like that, and then look at them in combat. Alrighty, so starting off with Destro here, I want to say off the bat that currently legendary effects are not working outside of Shadowlands content. So I had to come to the tree to hit these dummies here. I can't go to the Zarlor for stack dummies. They are not working in Season 4 non-Shadowlands based dungeons. So Iron Docks, Grimrail, Karazhan, whatever else is there. It's not in Shadowlands. They are not currently working. So I would assume that Blizz fixes that and makes them work in instance content outside of Shadowlands. I would assume those S4 dungeons are going to be the same things we have active in, pre-patch. If they don't, it's going to be a very boring pre-patch. If they do, it'll be a really fun pre-patch. So typically pre-patches end up being, pretty fun with overlapping abilities from the current expansion going into new ones. And with that being said, Destro certainly has a handful of them. Now, I'm not saying it's as strong as Demo, but I'd rank Destro in the middle of, the 3. Demo being the best, Destro being second best, and Aff being the third, like everything else. So there are 5 interactions that I have here. The number 1, well, not in any order here, but the first one, Embers of the Diabolic Raiment. So Embers of the Diabolic Raiment does indeed stack with your new talent, Diabolic Embers. So Incinerate literally generates 200% additional soul shards whenever you cast one. Now, keep in mind that Fire and Brimstone no longer generates soul shards, just cleaves for 1/80th of the damage you actually cast the Incinerate for, but you will generate 200% additional soul shards for every Incinerate that you cast, which it does indeed work with Havoc as well. Second effect here is Cinders of the Azakir. Cinders gives you 1 additional Conflagrate charge and reduces the CD by 3 seconds, right? You also have the ability here, Improve Conflagrate. Conflagrate gains an additional charge. You will indeed have 4 charges of Conflagrate with a reduced cooldown due to Cinders if you're playing this legendary with this talent right here. Number 3 being Madness, and this is probably the best one for Destro unless you're looking at big CDR stuff. Madness does indeed stack with Madness, the talent. Your Chaos Bolts cast, what is it? It's 25 and, like 40% faster or whatever. What is it, 20 and 25? 20 and 25 basically. They cast 45% faster if they're under the effect of the Madness effect when you start casting another one. And they hit a good bit harder as well, which is really cool. That is one of the stronger synergies for Destruction for sure. The 4th one here is Wilfred's, which is universal for every spec. Spoilers ahead. Wilfred's Sigil, the legendary effect, and Wilfred's the ability, which is now called Grand Warlock's Design, does indeed double down on the CDR for every single spec. So that means Demonology, really fast Tyrants. Decon is gone. Reign of Tyranny is around now, which is pretty bad, but there is still that, you know, Tyrant synergy there too with double Wilfrids. Destro, double CDR, Aff, double CDR. Now, we'll get into demo in a little bit here, but with Decon being gone and Reign of Tyranny being a thing, I think this interaction is probably the strongest for Destro, because you can indeed still play like just Reign of Chaos if you want it here, and Wilfrids, and have other effects that are active as well. But double CDR is really fun across the board wherever you end up playing it. The final one for Destro here, that at least I've seen, which is really cool. If you notice, respect into this side of the tree here. This is literally our 2-piece and 4-piece from Sepulchre, the first ones. You do indeed get 2 individual stacks of Ritual of Ruin, and you do indeed get 2 purple Infernals every 10 stacks of Ritual of Ruin. It's pretty insane. If you think Destro was wild now, like before pre-patch and AoE with Inferno and everything else, you get the same interactions with Reign of Chaos, with Wilfrids if you want here, and you also get Inferno with Flashpoint and everything else. Now, pre-patch might not be incredibly exciting for like a Mythic Plus, I guess, score kind of standpoint, but these interactions are pretty insane. Let's take a look at them in combat. Alrighty, so like we said, there are like 5 interactions with Destro that are pretty awesome in pre-patch. Some of them are a little more exciting than others. The first 2 here, I guess, aren't as exciting, but it is still cool nonetheless. So the first one is Embers of the Diabolic Raiment. Incinerate does indeed generate 100% more Soul Shard fragments, and this does indeed double down with the Diabolic Embers talent. So I can cast an Incinerate here. It's very simple to see. It's 0.2 shards for a normal Incinerate, so it'd be 0.4 with, you know, either this or the talent on, not both. It should be 0.6 with this on. 3 to 3.6, and if it crits, we get 0.3 more shards, which is very cool because Incinerate grants 1 additional shard, or I guess shard fragment, if it crits. So we went essentially from 3 to 4 shards there off 1 Incinerate cast, which can get pretty insane if you're in a Havoc window, which I'm not spec into, but if you're in a Havoc window, that can be an insane amount of shard gen. The other ability here is Cinder. So we currently have 3 Conflagrate charges here, but if I put this on, we have 3 because of this effect, right? Being here, improve Conflagrate. If I toss this on, go to a whopping 4 Conflagrate charges, all with reduced cooldown thanks to Cinder. So I put my Infernal down here and just open up like I maybe would. But dude, you're just swimming in Conflagrates. I have 3. We can Conflagrate again, launch a bolt here. We can bolt again, Conflagrate again. Look at the CD here. Conflagrate again, bolt again. We can do Incinerate, Conflagrate again. You're swimming in Conflagrate stacks. It feels as if you're almost up in a permanent hasted window playing Destro. It's really, really strong. It feels really, really strong. Let's put it that way. We know Cinders have been pretty subpar with the 2-piece and 4-piece and Madness being more relevant with Soul Conduit for a while, but it feels really good having essentially just perma stacks here and being able to roll Conflagrates whenever you want. Now, it does unfortunately share a node with Roaring Blaze, so there is no weird, like, we can have 3 to 4 Conflagrates with a reduced cooldown on it and Roaring Blaze anymore, but it is still a pretty cool interaction, and I don't know, might find to mess with in single target a little bit here and there. We obviously know a good bit about the Wilfrids interaction. My Infernal's on cooldown here, but we can look at it in a minute. Either way, it's a very cool effect. The weird part is that Wilfrids, being Grand Warlock's design, does share a node with Reign of Chaos. So if you want to play the Reign Wilfrids damage profile like we are now, in pre-patch, you can theoretically still play that by taking Reign here and wearing Wilfrids Legendary. You still get Inferno up here. You still get, you know, the general big hitters. Inferno, obviously you can get third Conflagrate here. You have Havoc here. You can even grab Pandemonium if you want for longer Havocs, for more shard gen. Rolling Havoc's a thing now. Flashpoint's a thing. And if you really want, you can also grab your 2-piece and your 4-piece right here. So we'll look at Infernal and Wilfrids in a minute here. But the cool thing about the 2-piece and 4-piece being the third interaction is that you literally get, let me cancel this stack here. You literally get 2 purple Infernals. Watch when I cast shard consuming spells here. So my bolt, there's 2 individual stacks of Impending Ruin. So we're at 2 stacks for, I don't have a Havoc here, but we'll build to 10. And it's sort of hard to see the purple Infernals, I guess Infernals being plural when they land, but you do get 2 purple Infernals. So when it comes to AoE, even single target, even playing a Madness build, if you're playing that, whether it's a talent or legendary effect, whatever build you're playing, 2 Infernals will bring insane shard gen. So we're at 8 stacks here. We'll build shards a little bit. Just say we're going into a Madness window or whatever. We'll cast our bolt here. Pull up the combat log. Cast our bolt. Cast our double purple Infernals. And watch our shards just sort of come, well, flying in a sense here. You can see they're both meleeing at the same time. You can see them both there. They're both meleeing at the same time, too. It can lead to an insane amount of Infernal Brand damage if you're playing that as well. It's just really strong. It's really cool. It might not seem as big in single target here, but I can guarantee you in AoE, you're literally doubling down on your 2-piece, 4-piece from Sepulchre with 2 purple Infernals. And in mass, in mass Rain of Fire just spam with, you know, extended Havoc durations and Inferno still being a thing, you're probably rolling just permanent purple Infernals almost. The Shard Gen, it feels like Destro felt how it felt before 85 nerfs came into it. You're just rolling a million shards over and over and over and over and over in mass AoE. If the legendary effect is active in non-Shadowlands instance content. Wilfrid's very briefly here. We can just toss that on, change these talents up, come out of here and go into Wilfrid. So you have the option of Infernal Brand or Crashing Chaos here. And once again, it does sort of split you into like, okay, I'm either playing Grand Warlock's design being Wilfrid's or Reign of Chaos. You can't choose both here unless you want to wear, you know, Wilfrid's ring and get both, I guess, the best of both worlds here. The unfortunate part is that you can't get both the 2-piece, 4-piece tier set, bonus talent, however you want to word it, and Wilfrid's being a thing here. We don't have enough points. We'll have 5 more points at max level in Dragonflight. As of right now, you're sort of limited in your final capstone rows here. But regardless, even in single target, you can watch how fast our Infernal is. Put it down, 3 minutes, cast some shard consuming spells here. Watch how fast it gets chunked. Chunked. It comes off CD a lot quicker than you may think, especially when you have haste-based effects, power infusions, bloodlust. If you're even getting fairies, this can give you a really fast Infernal. I'm also just foregoing basically CDF and Soulfire here. It's not really that much of a concern. We've been in combat for 20-ish seconds roughly, and we're coming up on like, I'd assume 2-ish minutes roughly in this Infernal here. Yeah, sub 2 minutes. So you're looking at, I would say, about a 1.5-minute Infernal with double Wilfrid CDR, give or take. I mean, we're at a 1.5 minutes here. we're past a 1.5 minutes remaining on my Infernal CD, and we're at the 45-second mark. So that would equal roughly about a 1.5 minutes Infernal. With berries or PIs or lessened effects and Soul Conduit procs coming in, it'll be an even stronger effect. So while Infernal might not be as strong necessarily because you're not playing Reign of Chaos, having double Wilfrids can still bring an exceptional amount of shard gen really early on. In an opener, or even just in general, if you're maintaining that consistent AoE profile from your Infernal every minute or 1.5 minutes. The final interaction here, which is, I'd say, a personal favorite of mine, let me swap this around, is Madness of the Azek here. Let me put Madness on here briefly. So you might be wondering, does the Madness talent work with the actual Legendary? It does. It actually does. So let's grab a point out of here. We'll play our Infernal, and we'll play Ember's Regen talent here. They do indeed work. They go hand in hand. So you get a baseline at 2 stacks here. It increases the damage of Chaos Bolt by 25% and reduces the cast time by 20% for 4 seconds. The legendary effect here increases damage by 25 and 20. So you're looking at literally a 40% cast time reduction on Chaos Bolt and a 50% damage amp on your Chaos Bolt as well. So let's put our Infernal down, gen some shards here, get into combat. Let's build the 5. Why not? This is fine, sure. First bolt hits for 11k. Look at the next bolt. 11k into a 27k Chaos Bolt. You can just chain these. Like with Shard Gen coming in, with your Infernal Shard Gen, your bolts are so fast, and they hit for 50% more damage. This is probably the coolest stacking interaction I've seen for Destro. Yeah, Wilfrid is cool. Multiple Infernals is cool, but you're literally machine gun. If you get a PI here and or fairies, or you're under a lusted kind of effect, you cast Chaos Bolts so frequently, so quickly, it allows you probably to even double dip off the first Chaos Bolt like effect being cast here with multiple Chaos Bolts. It's just so strong, and it feels really fun. You're literally a machine gun of Chaos Bolts. It feels almost how expedient Flashpoint Destro did back in BFA, back in better times. Destro, probably not as good as Demo when it comes to like big dog chomp build, but still really good with Madness and huge Infernal CDR, and hey, having a double 2-piece, 4-piece doesn't feel too bad either. So when it comes to Demonology, which I think is probably the most powerful spec, looking at talent interactions with legendaries, there are 3 that I have here. One we know from Destro already, which is Wilfrid's. Wilfrid's does indeed work with Grand Warlock's design for Demonology, giving you a really short Tyrant. Now, I've sort of run some basic like math and just a little bit of combat here. It looks like your Tyrant's around a 45-ish second mark, which is about the same duration of a Tyrant CD getting a fairy. If you stack Grand Warlock's design with Wilfrid's, with PI, and with the Fairy, you get into a range of potentially being able to chain Demonic Tyrants, like that clip I had a long time ago in Theater of Pain. I haven't run the math exactly, but depending on Lust and Haste and CDR effects and Fairies, there's a world where you probably see Tyrants being chained one into another, into another, into another, which is going to be really, really cool. At the same time, though, it's important to keep in mind that Decon is gone, right? We have Reign of Tyranny, which is like nowhere near as good as Decon. But Demonology has sort of shifted, I guess, gears a bit, which is like where the damage Demo deals is different. It's not Tyrant damage anymore. It's nowhere near as strong as it used to be. It's more pet-based damage with, you know, like from the shadows, Fell and Steel, your fellow guard being like amped by this. You have your third dog here. You have Carnivorous Stalkers, Dreadlashes here still too. And for what it's worth, this build is not what I'm, you know, a very good build. I'm just sort of showing the actual legendary combinations here. But if you're playing the non-Demon Bolt build here, like you have Grimoire, Fell Sunder, Fell Might, Hounds of War giving you more dogs, Expendables, you have Infernal Command, you have Torn Armaments. So having more frequent Tyrants means more frequent pet extensions, obviously, but more frequent damage amps on your pets, on your Felguard, on dogs, on imps, which can still lead to an exceptionally strong damage profile in single target, and even AoE if it feeds more dog chomps and more imp implosions, right? Number 2, Burning Wraps of the Bale Spider. So Bale Spider's Burning Core was a legendary effect it is in Dragonflight, but they changed it to Fell Covenant. It is the exact same effect, 15% for 20 seconds, 4 stacks. It is the same here, 15, 4 stacks, 20 seconds. These are 2 individual buffs. Now, I would assume that Necrolord with this main bolt is infinitely stronger now, especially compared to like Night Fae and things, because these will stack. You get 2 individual buffs, one from Burning Wraps plus one from Fell Covenant, with Shadow's Bite, with Power Siphon, with Stolen Power if you get it, with Sack Souls, with other damage-based effects here too, with FTS, with Dog Rechomps. This build can be really, really strong in single target. In arenas, the one-shot Demon Bolt build is back hands down, at least for pre-patch. It's going to be very, very cool. We'll see where that goes long-term, but I mean, even getting in the Dragonflight builds, you know, Demon Bolt build's looking pretty strong in current testing, so having double amp is pretty good. The biggest thing, though, and I think this build is probably going to be the strongest build that we have for Demo in pre-patch, if legendaries are working, you know, with talents. Grim Inquisitor's Dreadcalling. You can play Grim Inquisitor's Dreadcalling with Dreadcalling. So you have 2 individual Grim Inquisitor's Dreadcallings. And the cool thing is that you have your third dog around still from Sepulchre. They made it a talent. You still have FTS somewhere here. You have Dreadlash. You have Carnivorous Stalkers for Rechomps. You have, you know, Faster Tyrants with Wilfrid still. You have all these amps in Torn Armaments, I guess more so in Infernal Command, in Fell and Steel. And the really cool thing, we'll look at it in combat in a minute here, is that you also have your 4-piece bonus. If you look at the wording, the 2-piece summons an additional Dreadstalker. The talent summons an additional Dreadstalker. The visual shows 3 Fellhounds jumping into combat, but I can confirm, and we'll look at it in a minute here, you do indeed get 4 dogs. So you get 4 dogs plus 2 times the effect from Dreadcalling, plus all the dog effects here in Fell and Steel, in Infernal Command, and other damage amps here as well, and Hounds of War if you take it, right? Plus, you can still play Wilfrid's if you want, because it's a talent now. So this build seems incredibly strong in single target, incredibly strong in AoE. If people hate Demonology right now, like obviously non-Warlock players here, you know, they're going to hate Demonology a lot more in pre-patch if this goes live. So if you're looking at playing Demonology in the pre-patch, this is, like we said, probably the best version of any Warlock spec, and you have multiple ways of approaching it. So very briefly, here's my Tyrant. We're playing Wilfrid Sigil right here, and we are also going to be playing Wilfrid's in a moment. Want to change some talents here. We can grab this, take this out, and grab Wilfrid's here. Now, once again, Decon is gone. Reign of Tyranny is nowhere near as strong as Decon, but the big thing, like you mentioned, is getting more frequent Tyrants, more pet extensions, more 15% damage amps, and the big thing is, like, Demo does damage differently. It's either through Demon Bolt or it's through like just Fell and Steel and Anilian Training and Torn Armaments, Infernal Command, your dogs, your imps, everything else is just doing more damage. You're actually a pet-based damage class, unlike a Tyrant-based damage class. But he does help. So let's say we're going into combat here. Watch my Tyrant cooldown here. We're just going to cast dogs and imps. Watch how fast this comes off cooldown. So we're going to set up here, cast my dogs, go into a Tyrant setup. We'll go hand, Shadow Bolt. We're playing Soul Conduit in the class tree. Just hand, Tyrant. And watch how fast. So we're at 129, 125. keep track of my actual combat timer here. We're at 118. We tyranted around the 10-second mark, I believe, too. So whatever this comes off at, basically remove 10 seconds from it, and it's going to be even better. So we're already sub 1 minute here, and it's been on cooldown for roughly 12 seconds, give or take. Keep in mind, you want to start Tyrant setup at about the 20-ish second mark, depending what you're doing, whether it's Rim War or Dogs, give or take, but even your actual Tyrant setup will change, and you'll start it a bit earlier based on double CDR. So we've been in combat for literally 30 seconds, and I should be starting second Tyrant setup now. I cast my Dogs. Going into the second hand here, it's off CD already. That is essentially a sub 40-second Tyrant. I didn't even start the first one. That is a sub 40-second Tyrant. Let's look at the second one here. We're sitting at, I don't know, the 55-second mark when we went into this roughly. This is going to be an even faster one because I forgot to soul route it. We're going to have Dogs. We're going to have haste effects. We're going to have like core procs rolling. We're already sub 45 seconds. We had it out for roughly 15 seconds. I should be starting second Tyrant setup here in probably about 10 seconds. I'll do one more hand cycle here. We're going to have dog procs coming in. One more hand here. It's been less than 30 seconds, and I should be in Tyrant setup already. If you're getting fairies and or getting PIs, or even under a lusted effect, that's going to be even shorter. It's quite possible. That was probably a 35-second Tyrant cooldown. It's quite possible that you can maybe even just chain Tyrant extensions depending on how big of a cooldown reduction you get with fairies, with PIs, with lust, because we're playing double Wilfrids. It's a really, really strong effect to play around. So the second build of Demonology is the actual Balespire's Burning Core Fell Covenant build. We have just full-on Fell Covenant here, which is the exact same thing as Burning Wraps. The Balespider being this legendary here, same Shadowbolt damage amp, same 4 stacks, same 20-second duration. And the cool thing here is that as long as you cast one Shadowbolt every 20 seconds, you can maintain both effects really easily in single target. You also have other damage amps in Dogs, Power Siphon, FTS Rechomping, Shadow's Bite, Sack Souls being a thing here too. Once we get more points at max level in Dragonflight, we'll have access to, like, you know, Wilfrid's, other abilities over here. But either way, the build is very strong even right now in single target. So opener wise, very briefly, just to show Demon Bolt damage, cast some Shadow Bolts, send my pet in for whatever reason here, cast Dogs, it's fine, a little scuff, no big deal. Hand, we got some good Soul Conduit refunds. Hand, Tyrant here. We have 4 stacks. We go to Soul Rot. We can Power Siphon. We can cast double hand for max pet value. Then let's go Bolt. They didn't crit, but they'd be for like 45k if they actually crit. And the cool thing is that you have these little like mini Power Siphon FTS windows every half a minute. So whether you're playing minute Tyrant with Wilfrids later on in Dragonflight, or full on, you know, minute and a half Tyrant before Dragonflight, your Power Siphons should line up very well with basically every single window. And if you're lucky, you can even get FTS free chomps for just larger Demon Bolt damage in the first place outside of them. So we can cast Dogs again here. We can go Power Siphon, Bolt, cast a hand here, Bolt again. And you just have a consistent stream of big Demon Bolt damage. Now, the one thing to mention is that while it might seem pretty easy to maintain both effects here, being Balespiders and Fell Covenant, there are times where you're casting so many Demon Bolts based on just dog refunds, because you have, you know, 4 dogs from Rift to the Portal and your 2-piece. You get 4 core procs every single dog reset. There are times where the effects just expire passively in combat. You don't notice them. That's the only thing. They last 20 seconds, but it's still sort of hard to maintain and keep an eye on depending what you're doing. The cool thing is that looking at it in single target, Demon Bolts quarter of our damage, being 21%. We had a Tyrant coming up in 10 seconds here, a big Power Siphon window again. Sack Souls actually puts in work with Tyrant extensions, with imps, with pets being out, with the huge Demon Bolt damage amps. And this is Night Fae. This is not even Necrolord. If you're playing Necrolord, your bolts are going to hit even harder, and the build's going to be even spicier than what you see here. So the last build of Demo, very briefly here, that I think is going to be probably, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the strongest build of Demo, and quite possibly one of, if not the strongest builds in all the pre-patch, depending on if these legendary effects do work with other talents and things, is not Bill Spiders. It is Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling. You are able to get Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling from the actual legendary, and you get Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling from the actual Dread Calling talent itself. Now, in single target, your dogs end up being like, I think, like 45% of your damage, maybe a little more. But let's take a look at what our dogs can do in AoE. Now, once again, at max level, we'll have, you know, more talents filled out here. We'll grab Tyrant and everything else here, but I grabbed Hounds of War. Basically, every dog damage amp I can get. I think I can pull a point here and put it in Infernal Command, but we have basically every dog damage amp we can get. And the cool thing is that, I guess you guys will just see. So they are indeed individual stacking effects. We have one stack here because we had it from the previous test. Let's just open up here. Yeah, let's just go in and see what it does. We'll keep the Shadow Bolt build, who cares? So we'll go hand, build the 5 here. There's some stacks there, some stacks there. We'll go hand and dogs again, right? A bit of a damage amp. Cast our dogs. 4 dogs jumping in from the 2-piece interaction with the talent. And just look at how strong our actual dog effects are here. We don't get any shards there because we're not playing the Balespite or the Shard Refund talent with Tyrant. It really doesn't even matter. Looking at the damage amp here, we have dogs coming up again in 7 seconds. We have an 8 stack of both, an 11 stack of both. We have core procs coming in here with a 14 stack of both. Let's make it a 17. Why not? One more hand. Cast these dogs here. Look at this damage. 46%, 56%, plus 10% right here. They're making up a whopping 65+% of our damage in 3 target AoE. This is not even 4 target. You factor in a 5th target, a 6th target. Dogs end up being 70% of your damage, 80%. You have 4 dogs from the 2-piece, from the 2-piece, and you have an additional dog from the actual talent, meaning 4. 4 core procs per set, 4 dogs chomping, 4 dogs re-chomping if you actually get refunds and things, and 4 dogs being buffed by both Grim Inquisitors and Dread Calling, being separate effects. This is the build that I think is going to be the most strong in single target for Demo across the board. Probably the strongest build in AoE of any spec across the board. Your dogs are already overtuned in Dragonflight. They're probably going to get nerfed at some point. This build looks to be so strong in AoE and very consistent in single target too. Now, if you had some way of getting down to Wilfrid's here, maybe later on, or getting fairies in raid in general for more of a CDR thing, your dogs get even more powerful. This version of Demo is an actual blast to play as well. Hopefully both legendaries end up working, or I guess both effects being legendary and the talent in pre-patch. If they do, I don't think any spec will be able to touch Demonology. And lastly, we have Affliction, which, while not as strong as Demo or Destro, still has some pretty unique and interesting interactions heading into pre-patch. So, off the bat, like we talked about for Demo and Destro, Wilfrid's does indeed work for Affliction. And the cool thing is that, so Wilfrid's, the talent, does share a node with, Grim Reach in itself, obviously. But the cool thing is that if you do want to play Wilfrid's Legendary with Grim Reach, it'll give you a minute to a minute and 20-ish second Dark Lair, which could be good in dungeons and AoE. Grim Reach is strong. It's a good ability in AoE. Your Dark Lair does a lot of damage with its AoE I-beam. So that could be a thing. It's sort of worth watching. I don't expect it to be incredibly strong, but it's a cool synergy nonetheless. CDR is always cool. Second effect here is Wrath of Consumption. So straight up, this is similar to Grim Inquisitors and Fell Covenant, or the double stacking effects from Demo we saw. You just straight up have Wrath of Consumption here, and you have Wrath of Consumption here. Now, the effects are different. This is 6% for half a minute, stacking 5 times. This is 3% for half a minute, stacking 5 times. So you'll have 30% here at max stacks and 15 here at max stacks. It's 1 point only, but that's still a whopping 45% damage increase to your dots at 5 stacks for half a minute. So Mythic Plus settings where you have a lot of AoE and packs dying, or I guess mobs dying quickly and back to back. If you can chain essentially a 50% damage amp to all your dots for a long duration of time, this could be exceptionally strong. We already have the shift towards, Dread Touch and Doom Blossom Haunted Soul being a thing in pre-patch, which, depending on talent builds, could be an option, possibly, potentially, depending on how many talents you have available here. You can get a serious damage amp to your dots by going both Wrath and Wrath here, depending what you want to do. So, speaking of Wrath, but a different Wrath, we have Malefic Wrath. Now, there's thankfully, no Malefic Wrath talent that was removed in early alpha, but there is some synergy here still. So you have Withering Bolt, the actual talent, and we still have Withering Bolt, the conduit, somewhere that haven't. Yeah, there we go. So I mean, they have indeed capped Withering Bolt in Dragonflight talent wise. I believe this one's 20% here in Shadowlands per dot effect with no cap on it. I believe the one here is 15%, a max of 3 dots, so a max of 45%. But if you're looking at Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, just those 4 dots, right? You're looking at 45% here. Plus what, 100 from the other one? guess it's 4, be 80%. But you're looking at roughly, I mean, 125 to 150, maybe 175% if you're running PS and Soul Rot too. You're looking at a very large damage amp to your Drain Soul on top of Malefic Wrath, on top of Shadow's Embrace and Haunt, other modifiers being a thing too. If you go Necrolord with Decimating Bolt, similar to Demonology with, you know, Bale Spiders, Burning Core, and Beambolt build, you can get some really, really strong Drain Souls in. Now, this playstyle is very niche when it comes to just single target fights, and it's a bit of a pain to play with, but if you're looking at, you know, maybe cranking some big Drain Souls before the actual pre-patch is over, this could be a very real thing. And the final ability here, which is sort of cool, is actually Unity. It's basically Night Fae, Soul Rot, Decaying Soul Satchel. This is very bugged right now. We'll look at it in combat in a minute here. You get 2 Soul Rot effects in your spellbook. Casting one doesn't put the other one on cooldown, but it makes it uncastable. You also get the full Soul Rot effect from Unity, like the full 5% per target hit, but this is bugged in giving 2.5% per target hit. Now, this does work for Soul Eater's Gluttony, and it does allow you to cast, you know, Soul Rot basically every half a minute, depending on your UA uptime and things, which is really cool. The other bug, though, is that if you cast the Soul Rot that's given to you from the talent and not from the Shadowlands Covenant ability, you don't get Field of Blossoms, which is really odd. It's actually really bugged that even though it's like this build is marked as release, I hope they fix this bug because it could be a really cool build, but if it's just bugged like this, it's probably still worthwhile, but I doubt it beats other effects depending on where you actually go. So when it comes to looking at the Affliction interactions here, they're a little tougher to display than Demo and Destra just because 2 of them are sort of passive. You have, obviously, Wrath of Consumption and Malefic Wrath. This is the same rotation we've done for a long time with Malefic Wrath. You just cast your Raptures and maintain the buff, and it hits even harder than it did before. Wrath of Consumption, obviously, is a dot, which stacks, we talked about a minute ago, which can be a lot of raw dot damage in Mythic Plus and AoE settings, but you can't really show it very easily on dummies here. However, you can show the interaction between Wilfrids and Wilfrids. Now, you can play Grim Reach here once again if you want to, which gives you like a minute and 15, 20-ish second Dark Lair, depending how long you're in combat and how often you're rapturing, which is a pretty strong damage profile with Grim Reach. It does a lot of damage when you have multiple targets, multiple dots rolling, due to Malevolent Visionary as well. The I-beams hit really hard, but just for simplicity's sake and to see how cool it is here, I'm going to show how low we can get our Dark Lair with Grand Warlock's design and Wilfrid's Legendary being equipped. So let's say we're in Mythic Plus for whatever reason, or even in single target. It doesn't really matter either way. We're going to go in. We can precast our Seed, put our pet on aggressive here, precast our Seed, go into a Bile Taint, which applies Agony and pre-patch as well now. UA, Soul Rot, why not? I pop our Dark Lair and watch the cooldown here. Rapture, 154, 149, 144. You're already just chunking your Dark Lair. It's coming around so fast already without Lust, without any kind of PI effect. We're already at basically a minute and a half, and we're barely even into combat. And the cool thing about this interaction as well, I guess just AF in general, is that you do have your 2-piece and your 4-piece still, which means that I'm going to forego ID here for now, it's whatever. You have your 2-piece and your 4-piece still, which means that your dots, my Agony, my UA, they're basically permanent. I have my Bile Taint again to reapply Agony, but we're sitting at a full duration regardless. So when you're playing AF and pre-patch with your 2-piece and your 4-piece, you essentially have what is like permanent Agony, permanent UA. If you're playing AC, or if you're not playing AC, you have permanent Corruption as well. So we've been in combat for roughly 50 seconds, and our Dark Lair's back up in 25, which is going to be about 10 when I Rapture it down here in a little bit too. 22, each Rapture being 4.5 second reduction or whatever, 16, 14. It's essentially a minute Dark Lair because we're precasting a Seed into a Bile Taint into a UA, which is really, really cool. It makes AF feel almost like Demo when it comes to just raw CDR and things. The other effect here we talked about, besides Wrath of Consumption and Malefic Wrath, is actually our Unity, which we aren't really wearing there, so we can put this on. We actually were wearing it. But it's based around Soul Rot cast, obviously, and Dark Harvest, which is the new, I guess, I don't know, the improved, Decaying Soul Satchel, if you want to call it that. So we go over here and grab this, pull a point out of here. So this effect is currently bugged in a few different ways. Obviously, so I have 2 different Soul Rots in my bars here. I can just pull up my spellbook briefly if I find out how to do this. I have 2 different Soul Rots in my bars here, and I have 2 different Soul Rots in my spellbook. There's one in the Warlock tab at the very end here for some reason, and there is one here in the Affliction tab, and they are both independent of one another. Now, if I cast Soul Rot, let's say I cast this Soul Rot, it will not put this one on cooldown, but it will not allow me to cast the other Soul Rot. which is fine because you do get the full effect from Decaying Soul Satchel, being Unity, and you should theoretically get the full effect from this. However, Dark Harvest is bugged and only giving 2.5% crit and haste per target hit. We can look at it here in a minute with the individual buffs. And on top of that, you don't get the Field of Blossoms effect from Dreamweaver. Just to confirm, we are playing Dreamweaver. There's Field of Blossoms. So let's hit a Soul Rot here. I'll hit this one. So there's, I don't know which one this is, if this is the Shadowlands one or the other one, but I'll hit it. So Soul Rot. Here are the individual effects. 7.5%, 3 targets hit, and 15%. So this is the one from Dragonflight. They actually both are on cooldown. This is a new change. They both were on cooldown last night, which is interesting. It does give you 7.5% from the Dark Harvest ability here, which is bugged, and it gives you the full 15 from the actual baseline Soul Rot from Shadowlands. But like we said, there's also no Decaying Soul Satchel here, which puts you in an interesting spot, because the question, I guess this is a different button. I don't even know at this point, but I can't hit the Soul right here. You can't apply this until this one comes off cooldown. So it puts you in an interesting spot because, yeah, you get more crit multiplier and more haste multiplier, but you're not getting that passive haste buff from Field of Blossoms as well. Now, I hope these are just bugs and they're fixed, but missing out on 15% haste when you're getting, you know, a 15% amp in 3 targets from DSS and 7.5, which should be 15 as well from this, and as a raw multiplicative haste amp is relatively impactful. So hopefully they fix the double Soul Rot effect here. Hopefully they fix the bug with this, and hopefully we get Field of Blossoms, because at this point, it feels sort of awkward. It's better in certain ways, but worse in certain ways. But at the same time, this is Affliction, and looking at how AF was in Shadowlands, it's not really a surprise. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That should just about wrap it up. I have to say, pre-patch, although we don't have like any like super relevant content to do as far as like Mythic Plus is concerned, I'm sure it's still open and things. It's always a fun time. You have overlapping talents from older expansions going into, you know, the new one. Really cool synergies that aren't really around anymore, that we haven't seen before. Back to BFA when it ended, we played Blood of the Enemy as Affliction in Mythic Plus, which was terrible. We played it everywhere, which was terrible for the entire expansion up until the very end when Malefic Rapture became a thing, and that, you know, Rapture window became so much more relevant. So hopefully some of these builds, the Big Dog build, the Demon Bolt build, the huge Purple Infernal build, and maybe some AF stuff ends up making it to the point where it's fun. Now, it's important to keep in mind that, once again, these legendary effects we talked about here, they are not working outside of Shadowlands instance content. So, outside of Shadowlands. So if you go into like a Grimrail or an Iron Docks or a non-Shadowland dungeon, they don't work. I'm hoping it's a bug or an oversight on Blizzard's part, because if that's the way they want it to be, it's going to be a really boring pre-patch. Like, we don't know what's going on in the pre-patch. We don't know how we even leave Shadowlands, but I can tell you, if none of this is working, I'm going to leave Shadowlands and go back to beta, and that'll basically be that. But pre-patch is typically pretty fun with old abilities, new abilities, you know, overlapping, interacting, and yeah, so we'll see where it goes. Demo looks the strongest, followed by Destro, followed by AF, but they're all good, they're all fun. In the end, pre-patch is going to be a fun time. You have Evokers, you know, running around, playing alts, getting ready for Dragonflight. It's good to go. So I will say, I'm going to make videos on Destro, Demo, and AF for pre-patch, more in-depth, like rotationally and all that stuff. They won't be like official guides, like super in-depth, because it's all going to be up in the air. I doubt Sim if we're working with these, you know, interactions, but it should be fun. So if you guys check it out, I'm sure hit the sub button below. Check back in a few, I guess like a week or so, give or take. And I go from there, or come by stream and ask me questions anytime, and I'm happy to help. So let me know what you guys think of these builds down below in the comment section, though. I'm pretty pumped, like I said. If I missed any builds here, which I very well might have, or any unique interactions, please let me know down below as well. And yeah, I'll be sure to get back to you. If you guys want to see more content and help the channel, be sure to smash the sub button below, hit the like button while you're down there as well. And thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.